We're live now.
This call is being recorded.
Welcome to the Node TSC meeting for, what day is today? February 9th already. Looking at the agenda, we've got a few items on the agenda to discuss, so I wanted to do a quick stand up. If anyone has anything TSC related, we can make it abbreviated. We don't have to go through everybody. Just if you do have something TSC related that you'd like to discuss, stand up, let me know.
Just a quick update from the community committee. So the charter is kind of coming along. Looks like it's probably going to be ready to be approved by the board pretty soon. So just something to keep an eye on. I'll let you know when that happens.
Okay.
So was there ever like a point for that where it became not investigatory? I mean,
well, I needed to go through, I think, one more pass through the foundation board, right, Brian? Did that happen in this last meeting?
I don't think so. I think they're waiting for us to finalize the charter. There's still a few outstanding comments on the PR. But yeah, to answer Jeremiah's question, my understanding is the point where it went from investigatory to when we're doing this was a board meet, like I want to say 2 or 3 board meetings ago, but it was at a board meeting where I think they decided to do that. At least that's my understanding.
The board hasn't actually decided to do anything here. It's essentially still an investigation or proposal. So the board has not taken a decision on anything. Once that thing is ready, then I guess the board will have a vote to say, yep, let's make this thing happen.
Okay.
I see.
Anything else on the stand-up side? And I want to make sure, if we need to get back to the community stuff, I'm going to give us time to talk about it, but I want to make sure we get through the stand-up before we get too far along.
It's not really specifically me, but Node Report 2.0 was released a couple days ago, so there's something to put in your weekly report, Jeremiah. I put in the notes.
I'll be there.
Okay, cool. All right, let's.
The one other
last. Okay.
Sorry, the one thing I just wanted to, I don't know if this is the right venue, but the one thing I have on my plate to do is to try and push forward getting a common NPM ID so that we could, when we do those kind of releases, we can do them under.
So that reminds me, the NPM ID for Node.js or Node, I think it's Node.js, is, I think Chris reserved that, Chris Dickinson. So I could try to talk to him again about transferring that.
Okay, because yeah, I mean, I want to get.
Do we like for sure want that? Let's decide.
I think we should have it so that when we publish these modules like Node Report, there's a number of people who can do it. It's under control of the foundation instead of the individuals. And yeah, I think that applies to that LL Node and probably some others as well.
No.
Yeah, SitGen.
So there's like a difference between NPM orgs and users, I think, though. If it's under the org, I think it's always namespaced. I don't remember the details exactly, because that wouldn't be what we want. We want it as a top-level namespace, probably on NPM.
Yes.
Then we want to have like a Node.js user of some sort, essentially, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I mean, if we're all in agreement, I can go and just try and create, well, I guess figure out how we should do that and make the proposal.
Well, let's,
sure.
You can see what Chris already has too. So.
Yeah, if you think what he already has is, that sounds
well, good. Yeah, I'm not sure if I can really guarantee a response from him, so we might need to contact NPM directly if we want a namespace or not.
Okay.
I think we probably want a user that's called Node.js, though. I think. I don't know. We need to look into how, maybe Michael, you can actually look into how NPM orgs work and make sure that's the idea we want or not.
Yeah, I'll try and, that's what I was saying. I'll try and put together a proposal that says, here's how it works and let's do this. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Back to the regular agenda.
I have one other comment. I did a PR to add Ashley Williams to the meeting agenda creator. I don't know if that PR was accepted or not, but she'll be invited as an observer moving forward.
And I did add her
To
to the invitation.
to the TSC.
Here.
okay. Yeah.
I did add her to the invitation for today. I don't know if you noticed that. So.
And might be too short a notice. She didn't make it today.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is Michael.
Okay,
I'm on. Sorry, I'm late.
Review of last meeting, security work group. We talked about that. We talked about version management and VM. We talked about the copyright, which is on the agenda again today, and we have an update for that. We talked about the revised membership rules PR, which we will also talk about again today. Talk about a couple other issues, general update to the member travel fund, meeting times, and the community committee. So quite a few things, but I think there's still some of these are still on the agenda for today. So okay, so first item on our agenda is TSC issue 205, nominating Josh to the TSC. Josh self-nominated, which I think has not had any objections.
It is a duocracy, so I figured I better just take the initiative and ask.
Right. I'm trying to remember what our rules are for adding, if there's any minimum threshold we need for adding somebody. Minimum votes. I believe it's just no objections.
Wait, can I first ask if we are officially ready for this? Because I know we suggested the charter change, but I don't believe the board has approved the charter change.
Well, this is for adding somebody. You know, this is adding Josh. This isn't the actual membership rules. So we should already have something in there.
The hang up has always been like the weirdness with what the wording was in the charter.
Hold on. I thought that the membership rules weren't in the charter, though. I thought that the membership rules were actually in the TSC governance document, which isn't a board level change. That's a TSC level change.
Yeah.
Well, the revised membership rules were the charter change.
Yeah, that's different. We're basically just talking about adding, with regards to adding Josh. I don't think we need a minimum vote for adding.
I'm looking at the charter right now, the one that's in master, and it says the TSC may add additional members to the TSC by a standard TSC motion and vote, which I interpret to mean 50%.
It's by the standard TSC process, though. So if nobody objects, you don't need the vote. It's just like any other change, right?
But since we have a TSC that is much larger than the attendees here, it's not just going to be objections in this meeting. We have to make sure that we call a vote on GitHub and get input from those people. One of the hangups has been we've been waiting to sort out our membership rules so that we can ask people to leave and then add other people on. So I think what we should probably do is just call it a vote on GitHub and then get votes there.
So
the charter
again,
does say,
hold on. I just want to be very clear on this. You don't have to call for a vote unless somebody objects. So if nobody objects within the time window, you don't have to call for a vote.
Well, there's no time window here because nothing has been triggered.
The charter says in Section 8 voting requires 2/3 of the members of the TSC to pass. The 2 points there are changes to the charter and adding or removing members from the TSC.
James is correct. Yeah. We do actually need to vote to add or remove members.
Okay. So for Josh, we're gonna open that up as a vote and go from there. Okay.
Shit, this isn't the charter.
You can do it in private or something when if you don't want me there.
Well, cool. First, I want to say I'm extremely welcoming Josh to, and I think everyone is.
Oh yeah.
We're just trying to get the paperwork correct. And I'm still of the firm belief, the way I read the bylaws, it's not allowed, but people are free to disagree with me on that.
Hey, so we are actually revising the charter here, the TSC charter. Can we remove the 2/3 thing? And in particular, while we're in there, I realized today it says this about membership changes in general, which would include removing people, even if they self-nominate to remove themselves. So we may want to put some language in there that if somebody asks to remove themselves, it doesn't need to go to a vote. They can just remove themselves.
I think the language is already there. I think the language is already there for that. It's let's see, voluntary resignation is already covered. Yeah,
Okay.
a TSC member may be removed from the TSC by voluntary resignation or by standard TSC motion. So if they voluntarily resign, no vote is required. If we are removing somebody, then yes.
Yeah, I realized today that if somebody objected to Julian, that we would have to put it to a vote, and that just seemed crazy because like he's self-nominating to remove himself. So, okay, great.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I think if I can go back and add this to the membership rules thing, where we can take off the 2/3 requirements for adding somebody and just make it a simple majority of participating, as long as there's no objections. I think removing somebody should still be a 2/3 vote, because that needs to be a pretty high bar for having the TSC remove somebody. So.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I mean, especially since, the way that the new removal rules work, we're usually asking them to resign. So if it gets to the point that we're going to remove someone and they didn't resign on their own, that sort of implies that there's a conflict and some contention there. And I think having a high bar is really important in that case.
Okay, and unless anybody objects, I don't see any reason why we cannot have the vote in public on the GitHub issue for Josh, unless anyone feels strongly that should be a private.
Well, it might be a good idea to do it in private, just so people don't feel pressured into, well, perhaps voting differently than they would otherwise.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I agree with Ben on this. I was gonna say we could do this over email as well, though. Send it out to the TSC mailing list. That way, we don't have to get everyone into this meeting, which of course is tough, but it's also not super public.
One of the reasons why having the TSC nominate individuals to join rather than having anyone nominate is that we can do this in private before it even goes live, and there doesn't have to be that public awkwardness. That's why it's worked well that way on the CTC.
Yep.
And even if that means, a person like Josh in this situation could ask somebody to nominate him. Like we've had those sort of situations before, but as long as it's done in that private channel, it makes it much easier.
I mean, in this case, Josh opened the issue up. It's already in public, so it's already there where everyone can see it. We can do the vote in private, and I'll send out an email to the TSC mailing list after this, and we can collect the votes that way.
It might be worth noting that in the thing, because I put it up because we were having that discussion, and it was like, oh, it looks like any collaborator, so I just did that. But that would help for people in the future if they know the better process.
I don't know, I'm not sure if we have talked about Josh in the TSC at some point in the past in email, but I think generally we should try to at least make the votes public in some way if we're going to vote on something. Seems like a good idea to do.
But why?
Maybe we could do it after a period of time or something. My big concern is voting for membership specifically is that we are kind of like voting on a person and not an individual. And we don't want to create like personal vendettas here. But there's a way we have to balance that with transparency. So I don't know, maybe after a period of time or something. I don't know.
Why don't we do this? The folks that are comfortable voting on the TSC GitHub thread that Josh opened, feel free to do so. I will send an email to the TSC list if folks want to vote there. Then that is good too, and we'll tally those up. But in the final numbers, we won't say exactly who voted that way or with that. Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right. In the meantime, Josh, we love having you. So this is all process stuff. So.
I love being here. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Process can be freaking irritating sometimes. Okay, so issue number 195, copyright date. This goes into whether we can update the copyright date in our statement. Do we actually have a date in our copyright in our license right now?
It's referring to the many we have across all of the repos. Some do, I think most do, and others don't. And the question really was just for an official recommendation or statement. Sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
Just saying, if whoever was typing, you can mute unless you're the one talking.
Yeah. Anyway, so it was about the many different licenses we have across the repos, and whether we need to continue to update those dates to say 2017, if we make changes in 2017 or something like that. And so it's something that needs to go to the board to ask legal to give a actual, here's the final verdict and this is what we do. There's nothing right now.
This actually raises a larger concern. We should not actually be allowing the individual projects to set their own copyright headers. That should actually be something that is approved through the board, since they're the ones that actually define what that copyright is. Now, with regards to this updated copyright issue that we'll be talking about soon, there is a where it says copyright Node.js contributors on all rights reserved. There's no date in that string, and what I would propose is that all of our projects use that same header and that same copyright without any date. That kind of just eliminates this issue.
So it's a little bit more complicated than that, though, right? Because some projects come in with prior history, and in order to alter any line that they may have had before, you would need the agreement of the existing contributors. Also, yes, some projects come in under different licenses, so we would at least have to swap out the SPDX reference to the other license.
Yeah. I'm talking specifically about the copyright, not the SPDX.
For new things that we create, though, there is a recommendation, is what I understand, and that is to not have a date there. And I think, Michael, you may have said we actually just want the SPDX reference only. Correct me.
Yes, just the SPDX reference. That's all you need.
Yeah, so that's the recommendation for moving forward, but it's the existing ones that we're curious about.
So existing ones, you shouldn't change them.
Oh, sorry, Michael. The question is just whether if they have a date, if we need to keep updating it as we make changes in 2017. Because if they say it ends in 2016 and we make changes in 2017, what's the official thing that we're supposed to do?
Okay, so you're saying that. So in the case that they have a pre-existing copyright line and
yes,
we make changes in the new date, what should we do? We need to send that to the board. My preference would be to just remove the date because it's actually entirely unnecessary. But the board the legal committee may disagree on that. So we'll have to send that over.
Yep, that's what this issue is all about. So this
So I
one's
think that gives us our next step. Definitely gives us our next step. What we need to do is make a formal request. So I guess we can do that through Rod or Michael for the board to look at this issue.
Sorry, what? Say the second part again. I didn't pick it up.
We can get that on the agenda for next week.
Okay.
We need the board to review it. So.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Can you just send me an email with the specific links in it, and I'll get it in the board deck today, because it literally has to happen like right now. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Moving on then. Issue 175, formation of the security working group. Do we have any status update? Is anyone here that can give us a status update on that? I know Sam's been primarily driving that.
There hasn't been any activity in the repo. I think there was a little bit of confusion, but Adam clarified that we could continue prepping while we're waiting for the data transfer, which is what we said 2 weeks ago that we were waiting for that bill of sale to go through in the data transfer. I don't know if that's gone through, but otherwise, yeah, nothing has happened.
Yeah, I think Sam mentioned that we got like a sample, here's the sample format, but that was about it. So I think Michael Rogers, you mentioned last time we met that you thought it was imminent in terms of the bill of sale and data. That's still the case, or?
Yes, we signed it and everything. Yeah, we just haven't emailed Adam to get the data. Let me do that right now. I'll just send Adam an email right now.
So as far as the foundation is concerned, everything is pretty much done. It's just that doing the actual transfer and the technical side, right?
Yeah, we just need to get the actual data. But the bill of sale was approved by the board and everything.
Is there anything that the TSC
so he
needs to
actually-
do, or should it be on this agenda?
So let me post in Adam's comment yesterday. Actually, I just put it in the chat. He said yesterday that waiting on paperwork for the foundation at the moment for official things. I don't know. There was some Colin was talking with him yesterday.
It was yesterday?
A day ago, yeah.
Okay.
And he says as far as you know.
Okay. Yeah, let me figure out what's going on there then. That's strange. Okay.
Do we need to keep this on the TSC agenda until we have an actual charter? Okay. I'm gonna take silence as being no.
Yeah, we can remove the label from this for now.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Anyone have anything else to say about the security working group before we move on? Okay. Updating the copyright, issue 174. So I gave an update yesterday on the CTC call. There was a meeting, the legal committee meeting last week. I participated in that conversation. Basically, where we're at right now is that once the board looks at it next week, it should already be on the agenda. We'll get the first TR landed that restores the original copyright header that was removed back in Node.js, and just the files that are still remaining from that original change, something like 900 or so files. That would land. Then the second PR that proposes the updated copyright header needs to go for review by the board and the various copyright holders for approval. We cannot land it until we get that approval, the go-ahead from the board. I have updated that PR. Where now the header is just the copyright line and the SPDX identifier. I have added, at the legal committee's request, I added linting, both JS and CPP lint. to verify that that header exists in the files in lib and source. I also added, at the committee's request, some documentation in the collaborator guide saying that those headers need to be there, and that if a copyright header already exists, that it cannot be touched without board approval. And I've got the PR ready to go. It's just pretty much waiting on the board to actually say when we can move forward. Beyond that, there's really not much else we can do.
When you say you need approval of the copyright holders, do you mean everyone that contributed to Node ever?
Honestly, I don't know. That's why I'm waiting on the board to say what we can do.
Okay.
And it's going to be in the hands of the legal committee.
So in normally, I would say that you probably do need to get all of the contributors, but because, and this is very weird, but because Joint used to have that CLA, and because this was removed, like a lot of people that contributed these files did it when it was removed, after Isaac removed it. We probably do just need Joint's approval on this and not every other contributor, because there's probably very few contributors that contributed in this weird, very tiny time span where it had those notices and there was no CLA, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't understand, but I think we've talked about this before. The CLA didn't have copyright assignment. So it's not as if the copyright automatically transferred to Joint.
You're right, but it gave them a license to it that was like an all rights license essentially, and that would include the ability to modify the notice. Because again, it's note.
It's largely going to come up into, for the most part, probably 99% of it's going to be, let people know that we want to make this change and wait to see if there are any objections. For Joint, we need to just make sure that they're okay with it and that they, that they're not going to object to it. And it just follows into the same thing that, we want to make this change. Does anyone object? If no one speaks up, then we should be good to go. But we still can't move until the legal committee and the foundation board sign off.
James, can the foundation board sign off on the second meetings next week too, or they have to wait longer?
So next week's agenda, as far as I know, they are going to look specifically at the first PR that restores the original headers. And then once that is approved and once we get that landed, then they will take up the issue of the proposed change. So we'll have to live maybe a few weeks to see what the larger header.
Oops. Sorry, Michael, I muted you. You're back. If you were sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No, I'm
I
fine.
just unmuted myself because I needed to make a comment. That's why I was unmuted for that. But so my expectation with the next board meeting is that they'll approve the first one because it's fairly uncontroversial that we just need to get this back in and that we did the wrong thing at one point. The second one, they will probably look at it and say, yes, that's the block that we want. Like that looks really good. But defer some work for somebody to do to go and look up and answer any questions about people that may have contributed it during that time and had conversations with Joint and all that kind of stuff. So I doubt that we'll have a resolution on the second one, but I expect a resolution on the first one for sure.
Thanks.
And if anyone has any specific questions or concerns, feel free to email, and I will forward those on to some of the folks on the legal committee as well.
I'm curious to know if we land the first PR and then additional, code PRs are accepted after that, and then we want to change it back. Does that now add another window of weirdness where people contributed with it in the file? It makes it harder to ever change it?
No, all this stuff is always, pretty messy and stuff, and we're accepting changes and what licenses this particular contribution or what copyright is it under. The header only is going to exist in the files that are still remaining from the original change, right? The original change shows like 1,500 files, and this is affects about 900. Say if we came up and refactored one of those files and removed and deleted that file, we wouldn't have to put that copyright header in the new files that we create from it or refactor from it. It's kind of a gray area, but it shouldn't add any weirdness. It's just that block just has to exist in those files with those names.
Just to be clear, and I think I know the answer, but does that mean that we restore the copyright, the boilerplate in all files that we inherited from join/node, or only files that actually have, code contributed by joined employees?
This restoration puts it only in the files that still remain with the same name and the same path from the original change. Okay, so for example, we refactored the Node.js file, right? Jeremiah did all that work to pull it out and break it apart. In the original change, that Node.js was source Node.js, and it had that copyright header at the top. That file does no longer exist. There's now multiple files under lib internal, right? That copyright header is not added to the top of those files, even though they were derived from that Node.js. Node_crypto, see however, was there in that. It was one of the files that was changed. So that header is restored to the top of that file. Okay.
Okay, so I think I follow, but that basically means that all files that existed in the old repo get their header back.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, in the revised version, with the updated header, that is reverted. So we pull all of those headers back out of all those files because it touches test files, it touches benchmarks, it's throughout. The updated version would just have the lesser copyright NSPDX identifier only in the JS files in lib and the C, C, and H headers in source. So there would be no copyright header in any of the test files or any of the benchmarks, that kind of thing. Okay, so it's a much more restricted set that would have to have this header. Okay, but that isn't the revised one. That's and that's something that the board, that's the thing that would have to wait longer. So.
Yeah, I understand.
A bit of a pain, yes, but unfortunately, it's a process we have to go through. The other thing to consider is that once we do land this in master, Michael, we need a decision. Do we also have to restore this in our release lines? So do we need to backport this to 6? Do we need to backport it to 4? Or is landing it in master? Okay.
I got muted even though that was not my fault. That was somebody else talking, typing. But I was muted on my phone and it's really doing the thing. So anyway, what I was trying to say is this did come up and they said that it was sufficient right now just to put it in master.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Thank God. Okay. So does anything have anything more to on the copyright issue? Any other questions or concerns?
Just a note, backports will be interesting for those files for a little while.
Yeah. Probably, at least if we can do any cherry picking, it's going to have to be a 3-way merge, but we'll see. See how it goes. Okay. Next issue is, let's see, 147. Let's see, why was this put back on the agenda? Does it need to be? Because this is back from November 15, 2016. I'm not sure why this one's still on.
I'm not sure either, but maybe it's relevant, or maybe this is an opportunity to discuss the discussion about another summit, collaboration summit, which has been happening.
Yeah, I think specifically on that one, I should just close that because I don't see that it's relevant.
I think GitHub might have messed up on this because I removed the label, but it says I also added and removed it on December 15th.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
I don't remember this discussing
anyway.
this last week, and it never got relabeled.
Yeah, that's weird. It's labeled as TSC agenda, so.
And it should
I'm
be
gonna go ahead and
closed just in general, so I'm gonna close it.
All right, I'm pulling the label back off, so that's a nice little funnel.
Oh, I just pulled the label off. Don't add it again. It'll haunt us forever.
It'll never go away. Okay, revised membership rules. All right, so this one's called up for a vote. It is a charter change, so we have to have 2/3 of the TSC members weigh in on this. And so I ask you, if you haven't done so already, please go to the GitHub thread and take a look. Just to summarize this, basically what this does is it puts an attendance rule on the TSC that if I don't want to misquote it, so we go, if someone does not attend 25% of the regular scheduled meetings within a 6-month period, basically we ask them to consider voluntarily resigning. If they don't attend any of those meetings within that same period, then removal becomes automatic. And that 25% ends up being at least one meeting every 3 months, which is pretty generous. And here, it's just, the whole purpose of this is to keep it, we've had a very difficult time achieving quorum in the calls. There are a lot of people on that list that just have not participated. And we need to make sure that we are encouraging that participation, and the people that we do have on the list as being voting members are actually engaged. Based on the conversation we had a few minutes ago, I will add to this the relaxation of the adding a member rule, so that it no longer requires 2/3 of a vote to add somebody. I will do that a little bit later on today. For the folks that have already voted, we'll just need you to jump back into the thread and say whether that change whether it still looks good to you or not.
I do find it kind of weird that we'd have different percentages for adding and removing members, but well, that's something we can discuss on the GitHub issue.
The intent is really to make the bar lower for adding and keeping it high for removing.
And what about other things we might vote on? Would that still require 2/3?
The only thing that would require 2/3 at that point would be changes to the chart.
Okay.
Everything else,
yeah, understood.
Majority.
I'm curious if there is a desire to try and get this approved before Monday so that it can be approved by the board.
That would be ideal, if we could get everybody to to vote on it.
I think Mike needs to add the agenda item like now. So I don't know if we can be optimistic it'll happen, but otherwise we'll have to wait till the next board meeting to be approved.
Let me see, how many votes do we actually need for this? Look at the actual number. It's 11. So I'm not going to count Chris because he did resign. Chris Dickinson posted the issue today resigning. So there's 11 of us. Yeah. I think we've only got maybe about 4 votes from TSC members in there? We definitely need a few more.
This is probably a good sign that that 2/3 rule needs to go away.
Well, or that we need to manage the membership. Which I think that's kind of what we're tackling.
So
We need.
My main problem with the
need-
2/3 rule. So just some context here. My main problem with the 2/3 rule in general is that it creates a bigger barrier to change than of voting against change, right? So like the incentives around wanting to improve something, it makes it harder for people to want to improve it than it does for people that just want to keep things the same. And that's a bad incentive in general. That's my issue. So whatever, I'll leave that.
I have no. I would have no problem reducing the rule for things like even a charter change. I do want to keep the bar high for removing a member. But if we wanted to make everything else, including charter changes, a simple majority, I'd be fine with that.
Also remember that, I mean, so there's, I think there has to be a distinction here between charter changes and governance changes. So we own the governance document and it's in there for that. It's also there for the charter, but the charter also has to get approved by the board. So I don't know why we have like a bunch of additional checks on something that still has to go for board approval, right?
Yeah, I'm totally in favor of removing the 2/3 rule for charter changes, but yeah, I do agree with James. I think we should keep it in place for removing someone. And I mean, if we do that, the only thing we have left that requires 2/3 is removing someone, and I think that makes sense to me. But yeah, I like the idea of removing charter changes as well, just kind of as we've seen here. And it's one of those things like, sometimes we can look at changing governance documents, but on occasion we might get hung up on like maybe just like a sentence or two in the charter that would prevent us from making a governance change as well. And so, I think being able to do those easily as well is useful. Yeah, I could definitely see that scenario happening.
Okay, so what I'll do is I will update this PR after this call to relax the 2/3 rule for everything except removing. I'm good? So not hearing any objections on that.
Sounds good to me.
We'll keep it up on the vote for there. So I just asked that everyone on TSC members, please make sure you weigh in on that thread. Thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever, and then we'll go from there. Okay. See what else is on our
I think
agenda.
the science agreement.
Yeah, that's where I was taking. So I was taking as well. Okay, that's the last of our agenda items. Does anyone have?
I added one since we have Ben here today, and we could use his input and Rod. We had talked about making this meeting at a better time so that everyone can attend. Maybe it's a good time to discuss that now.
Right, that's the issue I raised. Yeah, so the thing is that, at least for me personally, Thursday night now isn't a great time. And I assume, well, I can't speak for Rod, but for people outside of the United States, this is presumably not a great time either. So my proposal was to rotate it like we do for the CTC now, which for me personally isn't great because it means I need to get up at least once every 3 weeks at 6 a.m. in the morning, 5:30. Rod, your input?
Well, one of the times that it's rotating to at the moment is 3 a.m. for me, so I miss out that one on completely, which is not awesome.
So, I mean, they picked those times to accommodate. Whereas, like, I mean, if this group has less people in it and less conflicting time zones, we could maybe pick different times that would appeal to people more, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We've got.
We have the spreadsheets. Maybe somebody just needs to propose a couple of times we can try.
That works. I am 100% for having the meetings at a time that's more convenient for the international participants. So just if we can work out the details, just let's definitely go for it.
Yep, I completely agree.
Just
And whether that's a rotating time or a fixed time, I'm kind of flexible on.
Okay, so let's just keep the conversation going in GitHub. Sounds like it's what we're saying. If I get a chance, I'll look through the times and propose something, or I guess any of us can.
Okay, we're coming up to the end of the hour very quickly. So wanted to see if we had any public questions. Anybody watching or in the YouTube channel or whatever. Jeremiah, do you know if we have anybody watching?
There's 3 people watching. I forgot to solicit for questions earlier.
Okay, we'll just give that a minute then to see if folks have questions. Just a quick poll while we're waiting. Does just like a show of hands, does anyone have anything for private session? Yes. Let's take silence, meaning being no.
Questions for private? Is that what you asked?
Yeah, just by a show of hands, without going into detail, does anyone have anything for the private session?
I have something tiny.
Okay. All right, we'll just give it another minute to see if we get any questions, and then we can close out. Anything yet, Jeremiah?
Miles waves, that's about it.
I was gonna bring up I mentioned it briefly before about the collaboration summit. There's some discussion about having one around JSConf EU in Berlin. Is there anything we should do to support that? Is anything we should discuss there?
Support which?
A collaboration summit around JSConf EU in May.
In Berlin, right? That's in.
So
that's the one.
Yeah, so let me talk about this a little bit. So we have a code and learn happening, right? And Rich and Anna are driving that. We're working on a budget right now. The board will end up passing a budget and we'll pay for some stuff that needs to happen out there. If we want to do a collaboration summit, we just need people to drive it and to follow up as well. The money is not the barrier here. It's really getting people to take this on and own it. So if it's something that we want to do and make happen, then yeah, we're all for it. I'm confident that the board would allocate funds for it. It's just we need people to drive it.
Oh yeah, I guess
believe some
then
people
just
were.
Volker. Good. Sorry about that, Ben. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, no problem. I was just going to say that there seem to be at least a few people that are interested in moving that forward. So we give them a little encouragement.
Yeah, speaking of which, I think Miles proposed maybe doing something in relation, like some sort of collab summit thing in relation to a TC39 meeting in New York. That way we could meet with some of them too to discuss things.
Yeah. I think it's just a matter of just putting together the details. So I think there's already been some conversation happening on GitHub around that. So I think we just continue there unless there's something specific we need to take to the board in terms of funding. So, or we can use our TSC discretionary funds. I have to defer to Michael and Rod on that. So.
It needs a proposal first. So if someone wants to make a proposal, then do that. I think this is not the forum for making a suggestion unless you've got something concrete. So do an issue. If you've got somebody to lead it, then great.
Okay, Jeremiah, one last check. Any questions before we close up?
Nope.
Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. This is going to close the public portion of the TSC call. And anyone listening, thanks for joining us.
Yep. Thanks for joining.